it's 5:30. I'll call this workshop to order. Do we have any additional agenda items to add? Entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make the motion to accept the agenda.
Motion by Vice Mayor Bear, seconded by Alderman Benstock. All in favor? Opposed? All right, we'll start with item number 1, agreement with the City of Kingsport for garbage removal services.
So our agreement is up in May. I wanted to bring it to y'all's attention now, and I won't be bringing an item forward for a couple months, but I just wanted to talk to you. So we went through the negotiation process. There is a slight increase year over year. We're still much lower than what the City of Kingsport charges outside their city residents for trash collection. I think we're good to go forward with that agreement. We're basically going from $9.25 per cart to $10.50 per cart. It's about a $2,000 a month increase. So that's basically what we're looking at. I'll have the full details when I put the legislative memo together for you, but that's basically it. I don't think we can develop an alternative that would be better in a short order. We have a good relationship with Kingsport. And on that note, I'm actually meeting with the Kingsport city manager and deputy city manager, and Tyler and I will be in March, and we're going to kind of talk through some things about collaboration. That way we develop a better relationship than just ending up with that contract and those things. So maybe some other opportunities for us to work together on some items and issues.
Would you give those numbers one more time?
We're billed for 2,175 carts. We're currently paying $9.25. The new agreement will go to $10.50. It's about a 13.5% increase. Their increases are based on rate studies that they have conducted every 5 years and then project out. We've had a long relationship with them, as I understand it. For about 14 of the 17 years that they've been doing trash collection for us, we had no increases. And then in the last 3 years, they've done it where they brought us up. So, yeah, the last 3 years, though, when the increases started, in the beginning, I believe we were paying less than their residents were paying for trash collection. So just to kind of put it in perspective, they're not trying to make it up in one fell swoop, but they are trying to make sure that they're responsible to their citizens for balancing the work with the cost. Did I get you your numbers?
Any additional questions on item number 1? We'll move on to item number 2 then, wastewater plant update.
So we're a couple weeks into the service agreement. I'm happy to say that we've done very well, even with the rain and such that we had. But we knew this day was coming where we were going to have to address the solids management for the plant, i.e. a press and haul off and those types of things. The wet hauling of sludge is still occurring. However, the cost for that is going to become prohibitive at some point. I'm there now, quite honestly. So in meeting with our service agreement provider, we're kind of talking through some things about acquiring a press on a rental basis until we can get our phase 2 process rolling and figure out where we're going with that. We have quotes from 2 companies. They're pretty comparable to one another. One is a belt press, one is a volute press. We're still trying to acquire another quote, but we may not be able to do that. The cheapest one actually is leaning towards giving us, if we end up purchasing, they're going to take the rental amount, some of the rental amount, a majority of the rental amount, towards a purchase price at the end. And it's not necessarily the one that we're renting, it's a new unit that would come in. So it's a good investment over time is what I'm going to say. For a 6-month rental for both sides, looking at about $100,000.
Was that what they tried to get in there one time before, about 5-6 months ago?
No, completely different people, okay. Completely different people. Much more compact unit that will actually get in there. And luckily with Matt and Infomark's influence and understanding, we were able to do that. We've demoed the lowest priced ones recently. We were happy with their production. However, we would like to have one that's right size for this plant to kind of give us good information that this is what it is. So you'll see something coming up at this meeting that'll go over the breakdown of cost for the wet haul versus that. At the end of the day, the wet haul is not keeping up with the production that's coming into the plant on a daily basis. And we're going to be fighting to stay compliant every day by doing what we're doing. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but obviously this isn't my industry, but I've learned pretty quick about the ins and outs of this. The town should have had a press this whole time. In the future, a decision has to be made to get rid of something for a critical infrastructure like that. It has to be solved before you get rid of it. And I will never recommend that we get rid of something without having a replacement plan in place and the ability to do that. So that's what we're going to be dealing with here in short order. And I'm pretty excited about seeing that because the state and the regional reps are happy with us. As I told you before, Mr. Parks from the Johnson City regional office is willing to come here and talk about how happy he is with the fact that we are doing things and we are moving. This is just one more step in that process to do that. So I didn't want to shock and awe you though with that, but I want to make sure that you know this is a big nut to crack, but it's the right nut to crack right now too. So.
That rental you got for $100,000 for 6 months, what would it cost us to buy it?
I wish I could tell you off the top of my head, but I've got prices all over the place from in the millions to $500,000. And that's the roughest range I can give you without giving you specifics.
Okay.
They didn't give us up front because I'm not looking to buy right now. So, but we were doing that for the phase 2 conversation with JMT and them. And that's where we're at with that.
If we're getting, X amount of that 100,000 towards a purchase price, if we end up going based off that, I feel like that your break even for the cost of the transportation of the wet loads are going to, you'll meet that number pretty quick.
Well, I can tell you that that's 100% the truth. So for 2 wet loads, which is going to be next week, will be my second wet load. I've spent about $16,840, somewhere around there.
That's correct.
The monthly rental for the press is $15,000 for the month.
So your break evens.
So, and the rental press will process 65 gallons per hour, right? Gallons per minute.
If I may add, the amount that we're hauling weekly for the wet hauls that we have set up over the next and budgeted over the next 2 weeks, we would be able to run through either one of these rental options in 1 to 2 6-hour days. So effectively, barring the efficiency, we'll be able, just strictly cost-wise, to process the same amount of solids in a day or 2 days than we would, a full week or a full month with the wet hauling option. So, if we run 5 days a week, 4 weeks a month, effectively we're going to break even on day 1 or 2, and then the remaining 19 or 18 days, depending on which option we go with, would be a net gain in the interim. We are, as Jim indicated, we're not making any progress with the wet hauling at the rate that we're going now. So in layman's terms, there's more solids coming into the plant than we're removing and hauling out. The plant's operating roughly 2 to 2.2 times what the solids should be. So effectively, the amount of solids that are in the plant doing the work needs to be reduced by 100%. So not only will it make financial sense, operationally, we need to do something to at least double the amount of solids that we pull out. This rental press will allow us to effectively increase that by 5 to 10 times, depending on how much we run. So,
If I can add one more thing, the willingness of the plants to accept this is not a given. So that's the other part, is they could have a problem at their plant that causes them to shut down accepting our waste, wet sludge. And we don't want to be in that position, because then we have no fallback position. Now, dry hauling the sludge, which is basically what we're doing, is we're processing it, making it drier, and hauling it to a landfill. That won't get shut down. It is the answer. So
How much is this weather hurting us too? Because all this rain weather.
it did. So we did see an increase of flow of almost 200,000 gallons a day. So the plant averages 240,000 gallons a day. So it's almost doubled with this rain. Without getting too far into it, it's majority rainwater, so that doesn't necessarily add solids, but it does add flow, which pushes more solids into the clarifiers. When we're running in the state that we are, with the solids being double the amount they are, that makes us very sensitive to these flows. So last night, if you would have asked me if we would have made it through without losing solids, I would have said that it would have been close. Thankfully, we did. We can't guarantee that moving forward, because the flows do cause the clarification or the settling of the solids to get sensitive.
If you had the press, what would that timeline take to, and you might have already said this, but what would the timeline take to get that volume back, like to reduce it back?
We're in the middle of calculating those in our models now. My best guess is we could probably have the volume reduced in 3 months. However, we need to do it in a controlled fashion as to not shock the biomass. So I would expect a 6 to 9 month turnaround. We would make an initial surge to stabilize the plant within 30 to 45 days, give or take, when receiving the press.
Has anything surprised you since y'all took it over?
There's been a lot of surprises, and we're working through those daily. I will say that we've seen plants in this condition all over the country, so there's plenty of opportunity on the table to make improvements. I'll leave it at that.
what I will tell you is the plant looks good. I'm telling you that it's cleaned up, it's looking sharp, and everything that we've been capable of doing is being done. The other part of this is, we're gonna have to make some long-term decisions to be able to make the needle go in a different direction. And that's why I'm having this conversation with you.
How's phase one? How's it?
Still not on board. Now, the problem is they had to order a part that isn't here till March 11th. And that isn't even installation, that's just delivery to wherever it's supposed to be. And we're still working through with the engineers and the contractor to figure out what that looks like, because we ordered a sealed unit, and I'm not gonna have somebody that doesn't know how that sealed unit's supposed to be put together void our warranty by starting to turn wrenches on it. So I've asked those questions in advance, and they're still trying to sort through that for me. But
Are they past due yet on their contract?
they're way past due, and we're working with the attorney's office and others to kind of figure out where we go from here. There is things that exist within the contract. However, all I want is it done and on to phase 2. So whatever that looks like, and that's the conversation that we've had with the attorney's office. So we need the proper motivation to be able to get this job done and move on to phase 2. Phase 2 should have been phase 1, but that cow is out of the barn, so I can't fix that one. But what I can do is I can get there, and we have a mission, we have a focus, we're moving in a direction.
You don't know why they done phase 2 instead of?
So I wasn't here for any of that beginning phase stuff, but I don't know who made the decision, and I don't know if they understood the decision that they made, and I'll leave it at that. This isn't my industry, but if I were going to make that decision, I'm going to have somebody like a Matt and a Hugh and whoever else is a content expert and a subject matter expert give me feedback, instead of let's do, aeration and nitrate considerations on the one side, and let's not deal with the solids handling on the other side. That priority-wise, that should have been reversed. And
Once you get that phase 1 done, what's the completion date for phase 2?
that I can't tell you, because that date is not set until they get together with us and talk about what all is included in phase 2. Solids management is part of phase 2. Aeration is part of phase 2. So when we start talking about all those things, the delivery time is based on how long it takes them to engineer that and how long it takes them to construct that.
Well, they've been dragging their feet on about everything.
Well, I'm not going to throw rocks and say they're dragging their feet, but they should have been done by November 19th was their original due date. There are some weather days that are associated with that. A lot of the weather days after November 19th, though, we shouldn't be there. And that's basically what I said to the attorney's office is, we gave them till the end of the year. Now we are in February.
What's the penalties for not being done in time on the contract?
I'll leave that to the attorney to speak to.
I don't recall the exact amount. There is a penalty per day. What you have to realize is that there's a lot of information that goes into calculating how many days they have excused for weather. We've asked for information by our consulting engineer, all right, to tell us when they would have, if they had been doing things properly and being given credit for the weather days, the delay, when they should have been done. That was something we had a meeting when we had with the consulting engineer. See, the town has a consulting engineer that's supposedly looking out for the town's interest, and that's who we're trying to work with to deal with this contractor. As much as it sounds attractive to, hey, we're going to slap you with a lawsuit and you're going to pay damages, the lawsuit will be going on a year and a half from now, okay? We need to address whatever we can do to try to get this thing straightened out, and Jim and everybody's making steps in the right direction. The lawsuit is a matter of collecting more information. We need more details about the contract.
Should we maybe look for another engineer for phase 2? We have a problem with.
We're already locked in with the first engineer for the phases. So
Okay.
that process went through a process where they were selected.
Yeah.
I don't think the engineers are the problem. I think it's the contractor and the subcontractors that become the problem. The engineer is not.
And the engineer, my understanding is changed also. We've got a more experienced person on
Correct.
board representing, because that is the hierarchy that Jim has to work through, is that, we're not able to supervise, evaluate the engineering work being done by not only the prime contractor, the other contractor, but then they've subbed it out to a subcontractor. So the engineer that's retained and paid for us theoretically has, on an ongoing basis, done progress meetings, has minutes of those meetings. That's the type of information we're trying to collect.
Okay.
And with Jim and looking over their shoulder, I think we're going to see a lot more emphasis placed on communications back to the town, and then us getting back to our engineers, to the contractor or the subcontractor, because they're going to start throwing things back and forth.
Yeah.
But it's not a simple situation. It's like the process itself. So the legal end of it is still there, still open, but it's not until we get more information we can file anything.
Okay.
And the information is going to come from this engineer that we've hired and are paying and have paid to provide the oversight regarding the construction contract.
Yeah, I didn't know it was every day you're late, you got to pay so much fee for every day you're late.
It is spelled out in the contract. However, it's not as clear cut as it may look in the contract. So that's the other part of this is.
There are what they call liquidated damages.
Okay.
That's when both sides agree that trying to calculate an amount of damages, and either your car gets hit, you can decide that the car is worth so much. But when you have a situation that's so complex, or there's other type of damages involved, companies oftentimes, contracting pros agree that there's going to be liquidated damages.
That's like
and that's
small
saying,
rate,
yeah, we're not going to try, if you're, it's so much per day, and I forget what it is, and I apologize, I just don't know.
I don't know either.
So much per day. but those days have to be calculated, and there'll be arguments back and forth about what days we gave them the extensions, so we can't complain about that, all right? Well, we gave it to them.
I know
And that
we
again
got-
was trying to get this thing moving along.
I know
As much
we-
as we'd like to have our pound of flesh, we'd also like to have,
I need it done. The bottom line is I need it done. So,
yeah.
and hopefully the liquidated damages side of that motivates them to try and get it done. And that's the intent of that all along. I mean, the town's not trying to collect a fine because that fine doesn't get us anywhere if the plant still doesn't work. So
Will we have this press item action board for this month's meeting?
I will be bringing it to you on the 27th, yes.
Any other discussion with the wastewater plant? Move on to item number 3, strategic planning for February 26th from 12 to 4:30 p.m.
Yeah, so we're going to partner with MTAS, our municipal management consultant, Pete Auger. He's going to come and put on a strategic planning program for us that day from 12 to 4:30. That will tie in with our budget process, so give us time to think about priorities and plans for not just the upcoming year, but future years as well. So just mark that on your calendars. Hopefully most or all of you can attend that day, and we will have lunch provided.
What I would like to also include with that is for the strategic planning, I think one of the things that, and I've talked to Mr. Stubbs about this, is that we need to have some form of continuity where this is a new board. We've been sat since November. We still had some things ongoing with the previous board, a couple different projects and things. Like, I think that's a good time to level set of what we have that needs to be done. And from there, we start looking at what we think we would be able to accomplish in the 26-year budget. Because if it's, in the past, things that have been successful get introduced in the strategic planning session, get included in the budget, get executed in the year. If we don't fund it at the budget time, it really becomes a very difficult process to get done throughout the year. So I just encourage everybody to bring ideas of what you'd like to see try to get accomplished over the next year to that session. Any other questions about that? We'll move on then to FY 2026 budget update.
So I provided each of you a budget calendar. Also emailed it to you a couple weeks ago. Just gives you an idea of where we stand in the budget process. We started back in January, kind of reviewing financials, reviewing estimates for next year. Had a budget kickoff meeting last Friday with the department directors. So they have their homework to do to come up with their budget information, their requests. We've asked them to come up with goals and objectives, sort of a 1-year plan, maybe a 5-year plan, and then just any changes or additions that they see within their department for the next year. So all that information is due back to me by the end of the month so that Jim and I can look it over. And then we have our strategic planning, of course. And then I'm hoping to schedule a budget work session the week of, I guess, around the middle of March, the 19th or 20th. And we can schedule another one after that if we need to. But just to kind of dig into the budget outside of a workshop like this, solely dedicated to just looking at the budget. And then we're going to be optimistic that we can get the first reading in April, the second reading in May, and go ahead and get that out of the way before June 30th deadline.
That'd be great if we can get that done in May.
Just to give you a little bit more too, Tyler and I briefed the directors of the departments and the departments that we were going to be doing strategic planning with you. So the priorities may shift and change based on what we come away from with the collective will of the board. So I've already prepared the departments to be nimble in this process, if you will. The other thing is they're experiencing a budget process that they've never experienced because they're doing it under Tyler and I giving guidance and direction. You're going to have a much more comprehensive budget than you've seen before. You're going to have FTEs attached to departments and FTEs overall for the town. So there's a expected workforce, if you will, and that hasn't been done before in the budget that I'm looking at. So we're going to try and make it much more user-friendly, so when a director comes and says, well, I want to add a position, there's no position this budget year, we'll seek it next year or whatever, but that way it's clear. Right now there's a wage line that we try and figure out what what that wage line was based on. And I got to tell you that Tyler and I have pulled our hair out trying to sort through some of those things. So,
Are y'all kind of doing the budget for them, or y'all
No.
are working with?
we're helping them.
Okay.
The expectation is everybody should be able to create their own department budget, and they should be able to navigate that. So,
I gave each of them a list of expenses or expenditures through the month of February to see if they could compare where they started the year in July versus where they are now, how much they've spent, how much they have left, take those numbers and then come up with numbers for next year. And of course, budget for increase in cost in different areas.
Is that a lot different than the way they used to do it?
Don't know what they
Honestly, I
did.
have no idea how it was done before, but that's how I've done it other places.
Okay.
And that's the most professional and responsible way to address it. So
I think that allows us to really get the information from our department heads of what they need, what they're, I think it would be fair to say that they probably know best of, Jason probably knows best of what we need for the roads, you know, and each department respectively. So that's a way to kind of collaborate from the bottom up and give them opportunity to set their budget, and that's where we come in to look at it, approve it, modify it, whatever it looks like that needs to be done to that. But I would say every budget has looked different, even when they've been done by the same people. Just because the numbers vary, things like that. So this is probably the most important thing we'll do all year. So it's a good thing too that we're getting started on it, and I really like the kind of the roadmap you laid out for it, Tyler.
thank you.
Have you narrowed down the 19th or the 20th?
I have not. I thought we could talk about that when we're finished with our strategic planning at the end of February. We can nail down which one of those dates works best for everybody. And we'll probably do a similar 12 to 4:30 deal if that works for everybody. But we can talk specifics later.
and as always, if y'all have individual questions or whatever, Tyler and I are available to answer, and we navigate that. If you got something that's burning as an idea, we might be able to help you navigate to where you want to be. So feel free to utilize your staff as you see it appropriate.
Any other questions on the budget update? We'll move on to item number 5, resolution for a FEMA grant to obtain emergency backup generators.
So Mitch our fire chief brought information to Jim and myself about getting a FEMA grant. It's called hazard mitigation. It will allow for us to receive federal and state funds to help purchase backup generators for several of our buildings. So the plan is, I think, to utilize that at the police fire station, the EMS building, and City Hall. And the town match on those is 12.5%. The rest of it's federally and state funded. And based on the initial information that Mitch has given me, the town's out-of-pocket portion would be about $30,000. The remaining $210,000 would come from those other funds. So it's a really good way to take advantage of that money to get those generators in place. Of course, as you all know, weather events can happen at any time. We've had a major hurricane. We had tornadoes come through Hawkins County last week. So you never know what's going to happen. Be a good idea to have that in place. I know, for instance, in Unicoi County, there were places where they couldn't get ambulances out of bay doors because they didn't have power. So it's a good idea to keep that in mind. And so Mitch is going to spearhead that. Our resolution is going to be for the board to authorize the town to apply for the grant. We're not guaranteed to get it, but it's the first step in that direction.
One question I would have with that, if that comes to pass and we were to get that implicated, and I know this is a lot farther down the line, but I know the police station, fire station, what that would be used for, it makes total sense. As far as City Hall goes, would there be any possibility of that being a temporary shelter if needed upstairs?
I think this is what I was told. This was a temporary shelter in case of tornado.
There's no power here. There's no backup.
Yeah, you can't get qualified unless you have alternative power.
Because the reason why I say that is because if you look at where there is temporary shelter available in the whole county, at the moment, the two that I think we've determined is the Churchill Rescue Squad building, they have a backup generator, kind of the same principle, and Hawkins County Rescue Squad. And for even the most recent incident we had, with the rescue squad in Churchill was pretty full.
Yeah, I wouldn't put people in a fire station ever.
Not the fire
The
station.
senior center makes sense to me, but I need to probably understand better how that shelter selection and management goes from the county level, and kind of understand that, and who's managing the shelter. Generally, and my experience is obviously from a different state with a lot of this, but the Red Cross would generally be the shelter managers, and then the towns or the cities would provide sub staff to be able to back that up and do what needs to be done. I say all that to say I'm not sure how that would work out as an alternative shelter for long term. Mm-hmm. For short term, certainly, but for long term is what I'm worried about. So and I don't want it to become a cold weather shelter and
right.
and those types of things. So I would tread cautiously with this as a process, because it'll put us in a difficult bind. But certainly tornado wise, I'm not really keen on putting people in the second floor of a building if it's a tornado evacuation.
Thinking, I know with the rescue squad, they had pretty exclusive, you had to have a medical need.
That's a special needs shelter, basically,
right.
is the way they were defined.
Or something like that, where they didn't have power.
Yeah, you got to have an oxygen generator or whatever that needed power constantly.
That's something where I would be thinking along the lines of just because openly there is no other places really.
So, if you don't care to let me meet up with county EMA and kind of have that discussion with them and Mitch, so I can understand better what they've got available in the area, because I'm sure we have special needs patients that would need those things. And I don't know that we've defined that as, it's something we did routinely in a hurricane state. It's not something you do routinely in a state like this. So let me get up with Hawkins County EMA if you don't care, and let me kind of get a little bit more information between Mitch and I.
Yeah, that was more just curious if that would help our grant application, if that was the case.
And I'm sure it will. I'm sure. I got to tell you that Mitch has been really effective in grant writing. So I'm pretty sure that pretty much anything he puts in for, we're going to probably end up with, because he's mastered that quite well. And really, really proud of how he does that. So.
At one time, my church, Aldermen United Methodist, was we trained to be Red Cross, to be a facility for that.
At the church.
Mm-hmm, at the church. I don't know how that stands now.
I'll follow with you on that.
Maybe if it was a really big disaster, would the next door over, they wouldn't do it?
It's federal property. It's federal.
Even if FEMA came in?
I mean, that'd have to be a lot more action.
Okay.
What this would basically be is if you're going to have a power outage for a day,
yeah,
and you had a couple people that needed those medical supplies like oxygen or something, we would have somewhere that like a city area that we would be able to put them.
okay.
But there is that other big caveat of security, your threat management, with all that. I mean, there's a lot to go into that. The only reason why I even brought it up was just more or less is it would help the grant application. Because I know with all the emergency management and kind of the issues we saw over the past year or so, this area is not prepared. Just bluntly, we don't have the resources and stuff that we would need to see that kind of damage that Irwin did. And it's just if it would help our grant application in regards of having that, because I think the generators for the police and fire department is like the bigger mandatory, because my understanding.
I think we're pursuing one for the EMA building as well, because it's our building.
Okay.
So, certainly they're a critical essential function as well to be able to get in and out.
Absolutely. And I think those are definitely I think all of them are needed. But
Are the fire trucks need to be plugged in too?
Yes, but operating the doors, they're going to be there, so their food, being able to cook, keep food cold and all that is important as well.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a need, and then we've talked about this probably as far as, I know since I've been on the board with Jason Byington before, so it's
Can we get a battery operated
something that we
drugstore
definitely
over
want
there?
to look into exploring, especially with that, considering the cost
Battery operated?
of $30,000.
Those are commercial doors. I
I
don't think they make a battery backup yet. check into it though.
Especially the past year happened.
Exactly.
And I think without, Mitch hasn't specifically said this, but I think one of the intentions for City Hall having one is maybe a command center. Because I think even we went to a municipal managers meeting in Irwin, and they were talking about dealing with the hurricane aftermath. They had to have theirs at a school, I guess, because their town hall wasn't big enough or didn't have the appropriate power. So there was a lot of factors, and I think the more prepared we are, the better off we're going to be.
Or is there certain kind of equipment you need on a command center to have?
The answer is yes. So going through the phases of a disaster, your pre, your during, and then your post. Post is when you get the most challenges, and I'll use the schools as an example. So all the schools are generally designated as shelters and things like that. What happens when the emergency's done and we're trying to get back to normal and we're trying to send kids back to school, but we got people that have no home to go back to? So those are some of the things that we talk about. That's why we have to have a room big enough to be able to have our FEMA partners, to have our county partners, to have our state partners in here, so we can do direct assistance and we can get those things. And a Red Cross can give them a voucher to go to a hotel for the next week or those types of things. So referring to our comprehensive emergency management plan will tell us a lot about what those things are. But nobody thought a hurricane would hit, Tennessee and North Carolina, and we saw what it did. So now you're going to see annexes added to these comprehensive emergency management plans for just those types of things. We had a 1,000-year storm. Doesn't mean it couldn't happen again next year and change the lay of the land once again. So we want to be very cautious in that. But the answer is absolutely, there's things that we can pre-designate. Networking, for example, coming in here and trying to connect all of these different affiliated agencies into a wireless system that can be robust. We can crash a system really quick when we do that. So those are some of the things that we'll have to talk through and kind of, hey, you plug in here. We went to hardline phones because the cell phones went down, whether it was a tower issue or whether it was just overload. We went to a hardline system and it worked out much better. So
I guess we from Florida, you got a lot of experience in this,
more than I care to have, quite honestly.
Only tangential to this, would it be of any benefit to put together a bug out, a plan showing people how to plan to bug out?
I think the county EMA actually has things in place, and all I would say is that we should be consistent in what we do. I don't want to do the town of Mount Carmel something different than what Hawkins County has or the state of Tennessee. So you're 100% correct. We can promote, because they talk about, at the FEMA level, make a plan, follow your plan.
Yeah, I know the EMA has I think there's like literature or stuff they put out that talks about they have a plan of regards of like a household family plan.
Yep.
I've saw some different things like that. It's not necessarily a true bug out situation, but probably more of a sheltered down situation.
Well, bugging in, bugging out. I mean, both of them are important. But
secure water for yourself for the next 72 hours and food, and 100% we can do some things like that. What I would ask is that we just stay consistent with our neighboring partners and we're all saying the same thing, because that can be very confusing to the public.
I totally agree.
But thank you for bringing it up, because I think that's a good point.
And not to take it too off the rails, but I have been working, or myself and Mr. Stables and Tyler met with, Mitch has met with EMA in the county right now. They have the RAVE system, the mass notification system that will send you a text, email, I don't remember all the things they send out. It posted on Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. So if there's an emergency, you sign up for it, you'll get a text that says this is an emergency message from Hawkins County RAVE system. There is a tornado warning for XYZ. We're getting that set up where we can sign people up just in the city under the main RAVE system, and we can push out an alert to just town residents that have signed up to it. Once we fully get it all in the process, we'll really push the sign up to get people aware. But that's just another tool that we have to let people know, hey, there's an incident going on that's could have mass notification, and just letting people
11W has hazardous material carriers going up and down this road every day.
Drain also.
Yeah.
If we have an issue with something where we would have to shelter in place or evacuate, and you've got a specific way to evacuate, I'm not bringing them through the cloud or the plume, that's exactly what we would talk about in that alert.
They have that within the year.
Oh, yeah.
We actually have it now.
Okay.
We just have to have a smooth way of rolling it out, so we're working on that now.
You got us signed up, John got us signed up on that, your senior center a while back.
That was something different.
Is that something different?
That was
Still get the
a
message through
property.
that?
I might have sent you all the information to it. I think that's what it did. I sent it to you, but I didn't sign it by yet. But yeah, we'll have to do that again for just the city sign up aspect of it.
Okay.
But once we finalize it, I've already told them I'll have a day to bring it up there and roll it out to you all senior center to help spread the word of it's available. So I think you all, that demographic would be the one that getting the text or call, because it even calls too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be the most beneficial for you all where someone more of my demographic would see it on Facebook or other ways.
Correct.
So it's a way that I think the rate is the best thing we'd have to reach the entire population where you are versus just one way.
I agree.
But your county tax dollars are already paying for it.
Yes.
So there's no reason for us not to take advantage of it.
Yes.
As far as the sewer plant, do y'all have backup generators over there?
There's one generator. It's in very poor shape. It actually went through its auto cycle today. It fired up. It did run the facility. However, it needs investment. So
Something we need to look into then?
absolutely.
That'll be something in the phase 2 conversation that I'm going to be talking about the alternate power and making sure that we're addressing that. So that and every lift station will need a alternate power. So having gone through hurricanes, when power's out in a regional area like that, everybody's fighting for those generators. So you can have plans in place and then the first person in with a check is walking away with the generator that powers that lift station. So having permanent fixed cycling emergency generators is probably the better answer to that. We have 11 lift stations. So that's 11 separate
Generators.
generators.
With the sewer plant over there, was it even in the plans to upgrade the generator?
I can't tell you that because I'm not sure, but I know that I'll include it in my conversation when we're talking about phase 2.
If I may add.
Yes, sir.
If our company, Infomark, is selected to become a long-term service, we'll go through the whole system as part of our included services and determine generators, all of the other equipment they need to be, and help guide the town into making the decisions, no matter who the engineer or whatever the project is, because the facility needs to be gone through.
And that's one of the things in the RFP process that every vendor that bids is going to have to be part of the solution and inventory and, make recommendations on where this needs to go, where that needs to go, what needs to be done. So that exists for every one of the vendors that may
Do
do that.
have like a backup generator, that you have to bring to a department for temporary use or something like that?
We don't own any. What we do is partner. We've got 2 local rental companies. One's got an office in Bluntville, one in Johnson City, that have got that equipment available.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about hurricanes in Tennessee like Florida.
Yeah.
So when the whole east coast of Florida gets hit, every one of the generators are pre-committed through contract or somebody sent somebody out to pick them up and pre-deploy them.
I think Asheville, North Carolina, I think you just kind of seen that. Everybody just getting generators like crazy.
Yep.
I will say in this specific situation, Hurricane Helene, within a day, just about every available rental pump, diesel pump, and generator was in the Unicoi or Irwin area, if not Western North Carolina. So to Jim's point, they are available, but during an emergency, it's tough to get them. So.
They disappear quick.
All right, so we'll move on to that. So we'll see that on the agenda this month for the backup generators. We'll move on to item number 6, town administrator agreement.
So I provided it to you all, and I'm willing to have any conversations. As I said, the only thing I included in there was I wanted guardrails up should you decide to get rid of me without cause. And it's a graduated scale. I think it's more than fair. But I'm willing to listen to y'all and talk. And however we bring it forward is up to you all. So
I thought you was really fair.
thank you.
I think I thought that I had I agree with everything in the contract. I agree with you having the guardrails in place, and from the research, it looked like the last step that you graduate or goes to is the industry standard. So that's no.
It's slightly below the industry standard, but that's okay. And I'm all right with that.
I think everything's going great, and look forward to bringing you on and removing that temporary title.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions about that? That'll be another actual item on the agenda this month.
Put that together, so.
Yeah,
He's not doing it, I'm not doing it.
I've got one, I guess, more announcement type thing than,
Yeah, somebody.
potentially might see something on the agenda this month about accepting a donation. I've got somebody that's going to make a donation to some labor, fencing and some things at the park to make sure the fields are playable for softball, for baseball. But they're wanting to make a donation, and we just have something written up to accept it. Basically cleaning up there, removing the rocks on the fields. More labor is just a way for us to formally acknowledge their donation.
I was wondering if anybody read the Roseland paper about whether EMTs will come around and talk to the panels again.
Let's adjourn, and then we'll talk about that. Second. All in favor?